What if I told you that the morning after Joseph saved a fallen seraphim in the Judean desert, the temperature dropped to 32 degrees Fahrenheit in the middle of summer, the sand turned to ice, and 29 Shadow Sentinels materialized out of thin air, surrounding his tent in complete silence? What if I told you that this event was so dangerous, so reality-shattering, that it was completely erased from every biblical text you've ever read? And what if I told you that Joseph, the man we dismiss as just a carpenter, held a secret rank in the cosmic hierarchy that made even the fallen angels hesitate before confronting him? You're about to discover why the Vatican buried this story so deep that most scholars don't even know it exists. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why you were meant to hear it right now, at this exact moment in history. Because what happened in that desert 2,000 years ago is happening again today, and you're right in the middle of it. The year was 7 BC. Joseph had just received the warning in his dream. An angel had told him to take Mary and the child Jesus and flee to Egypt because Herod was coming to slaughter every male child under 2 years old in Bethlehem. But what the Bible doesn't tell you is that the angel gave Joseph specific coordinates. Not just go to Egypt, but exact geographical markers that would take him through the most dangerous part of the Sinai Desert, a region that even the Roman legions avoided. Why? Because that stretch of desert had a reputation. Travelers who entered that corridor reported seeing things, massive shadows moving across the dunes at impossible speeds, lights in the sky that defied explanation, and sounds, deep, vibrating sounds that seemed to come from beneath the earth itself. Joseph knew what that region was. He wasn't just a carpenter. The Greek word used in the original texts is Tekton, which the church translated as carpenter to make him seem ordinary, relatable, safe. But a tekton in the ancient world was something far more significant. It was a master builder, yes, but not just of physical structures. A tekton was an initiate, someone trained in the mystery schools, someone who understood sacred geometry, frequency, and the architecture of reality itself. Joseph had been trained by the Essenes at Qumran, and before that, he had studied in Egypt during the silent years that the Bible conveniently omits from his biography. Joseph knew that the corridor through the Sinai wasn't just geographically dangerous. It was dimensionally unstable. It was a thin place where the barriers between our reality and other realms became permeable. And the angel had told him to go directly through it, not around it, through it. That's when Joseph understood this wasn't just about escaping Herod. This was a test, a mission, and he was being sent into the fire deliberately. The journey began at night. Joseph, Mary, and the infant Jesus left Bethlehem under cover of darkness, traveling light, moving fast. They had enough supplies for maybe 10 days if they rationed carefully. The path took them south through the wilderness of Judea, then west toward the Sinai. For the first 2 days, everything seemed normal. Hot during the day, cold at night, the usual desert rhythm. But on the third day, as they entered the forbidden corridor, Joseph felt it. A shift in the air pressure, a change in the quality of light. The sky took on a strange copper hue, and the silence became absolute. No birds, no insects, no wind, just eerie, pressing silence. Mary felt it too. She held Jesus closer, and the baby, who had been calm throughout the journey, suddenly became restless, his eyes wide, tracking something in the empty air that neither Joseph nor Mary could see. Joseph's training kicked in. He began reciting protection mantras under his breath, ancient words in Aramaic and Hebrew, layering frequencies of sound that would create a shield around his family. He drew symbols in the sand with his staff as they walked, symbols that would confuse any entity trying to track them. And then, just before sunset on the third day, Joseph saw it. About half a mile ahead, something was lying in the sand. At first, he thought it was a dead animal, maybe a camel that had collapsed from dehydration. But as they got closer, he realized the scale was all wrong. This thing was massive, easily 9 feet long, maybe more, and it wasn't moving. Joseph told Mary to stay back with Jesus. He approached slowly, every sense on high alert, his hand on the small bronze knife he carried, knowing full well that if this thing was hostile, a knife would be useless. And then he saw what it was, and his blood ran cold. It was a seraphim, a fallen seraphim, one of the highest orders of angels, now corrupted, now cast down. But this wasn't one of the watchers who had fallen by choice, who had rebelled out of lust or pride. Joseph could see that immediately. This being had been wounded in the war in heaven that had happened before time began, the war that Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels. This seraphim bore the scars of that battle, and more than that, he bore the mark of rejection. He had been cast out not because he chose darkness, but because he had questioned, because he had asked why, because he had loved too much and lost everything. And now here he was, dying in the desert, abandoned by both heaven and hell, belonging to neither, accepted by none. The seraphim's skin was translucent, almost crystalline, but cracked and bleeding a substance that looked like liquid light mixed with shadow. His 6 wings, once magnificent, were now tattered and broken, some of the feathers burned away entirely, others hanging by threads of energy. His eyes, when he opened them and looked at Joseph, were not the black voids of the corrupted watchers. They were still gold, still holding a flicker of the divine fire, but dimmed, dying, filled with a pain so deep it seemed to have no bottom. He spoke, and his voice was like a song and a scream at the same time, a frequency that made Joseph's bones vibrate. "Don't waste your water on me, son of David. I am already sentenced, already forgotten." But Joseph saw something else. He saw through the training he had received, through the inner sight that the Essenes had taught him to develop. He saw that this being's soul was still intact, damaged, yes, traumatized, absolutely, but not corrupted, not evil. This was a casualty of war, not a war criminal. Joseph did something that would have consequences rippling through eternity. He knelt down beside the dying seraphim, took out his water skin, the most precious resource in the desert, and poured it over the angel's cracked lips. The seraphim's eyes went wide with shock. "Why?" he whispered. "Why would you, a human, help one of us? We brought you nothing but suffering." "Because," Joseph said quietly, "the one who sent me on this journey taught me that mercy is not about whether someone deserves it. It's about whether I choose to give it, and I choose to give it to you. Now, before we continue, I need you to understand something. What Joseph did in that moment was illegal according to cosmic law. There are rules, ancient rules, about how humans are supposed to interact with fallen angels. You don't help them. You don't acknowledge them. You definitely don't show them mercy, because that opens a door, a possibility, a crack in the system, and the system does not like cracks. Drop a comment right now if you've ever felt like you broke an invisible rule just by being kind, just by following your heart. Because what's about to happen next will show you why the system is terrified of people like you. Joseph didn't just give the seraphim water, he set up camp right there, against all logic, against all survival instinct. He made a fire, he shared his bread, and he did something even more radical. He asked the seraphim his name. Because in the ancient world, asking someone's name is an act of recognition. It's saying, you exist, you matter. I see you as a person, not just a category, not just a label. The seraphim wept. Tears of liquid light rolled down his crystalline face, and where they hit the sand, small flowers bloomed, impossible desert flowers that shouldn't exist. "My name," he said slowly, as if remembering something from a very long time ago, "is Raziel. I was the keeper of secrets, the one who stood closest to the throne and recorded the mysteries of creation. But I asked why humanity was given free will when we were not. I asked why they were loved with a love we could never understand. And for asking, I was cast down. Joseph listened. He didn't judge. He didn't preach. He just listened. And in listening, he did something that no human had done for a fallen angel in millennia. He bore witness to their pain. He validated their experience. And that simple act of compassion created a frequency shift so powerful that it was felt in every dimension simultaneously. Mary, watching from a distance with Jesus in her arms, understood what was happening, even if she couldn't articulate it. She saw the air around Joseph and Raziel begin to shimmer. She saw colors that don't exist in our spectrum start to swirl around them. And she knew, with the deep knowing that only mothers have, that her husband had just changed the rules of the game. Joseph spent hours with Raziel. He cleaned the angel's wounds, using water mixed with oils he carried, oils consecrated by the Essenes for exactly this purpose. He spoke to Raziel about the child he was protecting, about the mission of redemption, about the plan that was unfolding, and Raziel listened with an intensity that was almost painful, because hope, when you've lost it completely, hurts more than despair when it starts to come back. As the night deepened, Raziel's breathing stabilized. The cracks in his crystalline skin began to close, not completely, but enough. He would live, at least for now. And then, just before midnight, Raziel did something unexpected. He reached into his chest, literally reached into his own body, and pulled out a small object. It was a crystal about the size of a walnut, pulsing with soft golden light. "This," Raziel said, "is a fragment of the original light, from before the fall, before the war. It contains knowledge that was supposed to be sealed forever, the true history of humanity, your origins, your destiny, your power. The Archons don't want you to know this. The systems of control are built on you not knowing this. Take it, hide it, and when the time is right, when your son is ready, give it to him. He will know what to do with it." Joseph took the crystal. It was warm, almost alive, and the moment it touched his palm, he saw everything, the creation of humanity. The genetic experiments, the interference, the wars between factions of angels over what to do with the human project. The truth that humans were not created as slaves, but as bridges, as beings who could choose, who could evolve, who could become something that even angels could not become. And Joseph understood why they were so afraid of us, why the systems work so hard to keep us distracted, divided, drugged, and depressed. Because a human who knows who they are, a human who activates their full potential, is the most powerful being in this sector of creation. More powerful than angels, because we have what they don't: the ability to truly choose, to truly create, to truly love without programming. Joseph carefully wrapped the crystal and hid it deep in his traveling pack. He looked at Raziel, who was now sitting up, his strength slowly returning. "What will you do now?" Joseph asked. Raziel smiled, a sad but genuine smile. "I will return to the in-between places, the borderlands, where those like me exist who are neither fully fallen nor allowed to return. We are the watchers of the watchers, the guardians of the forgotten. But now I have something I didn't have before: hope. You gave me hope, Tekton. And that is a dangerous gift, because hope demands action." They embraced, an impossible embrace between a human and a fallen angel, and in that moment, something fundamental shifted in the cosmic balance sheet. Somewhere in the halls of power, both light and dark, alarms started going off. Because what just happened wasn't supposed to be possible. A human had extended grace to a fallen angel, and the fallen angel had accepted it, and both had been transformed by the encounter. Joseph returned to Mary and Jesus. The baby was asleep now, peaceful, as if he knew that everything was unfolding exactly as it should. Joseph lay down, exhausted, his mind racing with everything he had seen in the crystal, everything Raziel had told him. He finally fell asleep just before dawn, thinking he would wake up to the normal desert sunrise, to heat and light, and the continuation of their journey. He was wrong. When he woke up, everything had changed. And I mean everything. If you're still watching, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications, because what I'm about to tell you next is the part that will make sense of everything strange that's been happening in your life. Everything. Joseph woke up because he was cold. Not just chilly, but freezing cold. In the desert. In summer. That was wrong. That was impossible. He opened his eyes and couldn't process what he was seeing. The sand around their tent had turned to ice. Not frost. Not frozen condensation, solid ice. The kind of ice that takes hours of sub-zero temperatures to form, and it stretched out in every direction as far as he could see, transforming the golden desert into a frozen wasteland. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the silence and the presence. Joseph sat up slowly, every instinct screaming danger. He looked around the perimeter of their camp, and his heart stopped. They were surrounded. 29 figures stood in a perfect circle around the tent, spaced exactly equal distances apart, absolutely motionless. They were tall, at least 7 feet, maybe more, wrapped in cloaks that seemed to be made of solidified shadow, not black fabric. Actual shadow, as if darkness itself had been woven into material form. These were not the Watchers. These were something else, something worse. Joseph's training helped him identify them immediately. These were the Shadow Sentinels, the enforcers of cosmic law, the beings who maintain the boundaries between realms, who ensure that the rules are followed, who punish violations. They were judge, jury, and executioner all in one. And they operated outside of both heaven and hell's authority. They answered only to the source itself, or so the legend said, and they had come for Joseph, because he had broken the law. He had shown mercy to a fallen angel. He had accepted forbidden knowledge. He had, by those simple acts of compassion, created a crack in the prison walls of reality, and the Sentinel's job was to seal that crack by any means necessary. Mary woke up and immediately grabbed Jesus, her eyes wide with terror. She could see them too. 29 dark figures in the ice-covered desert, not moving, not speaking, just standing there with an energy of absolute finality. Joseph stood up, placed himself between his family and the circle of sentinels, and waited. Because he knew that you don't speak first to beings like this. You wait, you let them state their case, and then, if you're very wise and very brave, you respond. The silence stretched out for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. And then, all at once, all 29 sentinels spoke. Not individually, but as one voice, a chorus of perfect unison that came from everywhere and nowhere, a sound that bypassed the ears and spoke directly to the soul. Joseph Bar Eli, Tekton of the mystery schools, guardian of the Nazarene child, you have violated Protocol 7 of the separation mandate. You have extended mercy to a condemned seraphim. You have accepted forbidden knowledge. You have created a bridge where there should be a wall. The penalty is complete erasure. You, your family, and your genetic line will be removed from the timeline. This is not negotiable. This is law. Complete erasure. Not just death. Erasure. Removed from the timeline means you never existed. Everything you did, everyone you influenced, every choice you made, gone. Retroactively deleted. And that would include Jesus. That would include the entire plan of redemption. That would include the hope of humanity. All gone because Joseph had been kind to a suffering angel. Joseph stood there in the freezing desert, ice crunching under his feet, his wife and child behind him. And he did something that the Shadow Sentinels had not anticipated. He smiled. He actually smiled. And then he spoke, and his voice carried a frequency that none of them expected, a harmonic that resonated with the crystal hidden in his pack, the crystal Raziel had given him. Protocol 7 of the Separation Mandate, Joseph said calmly, was enacted after the Watcher Rebellion to prevent humans from collaborating with fallen angels in the overthrow of the established order. It assumes that all contact between humans and fallen angels is conspiratorial in nature. But that assumption is flawed, and I invoke Protocol 1, which predates all other protocols, which comes from the source itself, the protocol of sovereign choice. I am a sovereign being. I choose mercy, and my choice cannot be overridden by derivative legislation. The 29 Sentinels didn't move, but Joseph felt the shockwave ripple through them. How did this human know about Protocol 1? How did he know the exact legal language? How did he have the authority to invoke it? The answer was in the crystal, in the knowledge Raziel had given him, in the training he had received. Joseph was not just some random carpenter who stumbled into this situation. He had been prepared, trained, positioned exactly where he needed to be for exactly this moment. One of the Sentinels stepped forward, separating slightly from the perfect circle. When he spoke, his voice was his own, no longer part of the unified chorus, and there was something in it that might have been curiosity. You know the law, impressive, but knowledge of the law does not grant immunity from it. The penalty stands. Does it? Joseph replied. Because if you erase me, you erase the timeline where the Nazarene completes his mission. And if that timeline is erased, the source's own prophecy is nullified. And if that happens, you're not enforcing law, you're violating it. You're not maintaining order, you're creating chaos. So tell me, Sentinel, who's really breaking the rules here? The standoff intensified. The ice around them began to crack and shift, not from temperature change, but from the pressure of conflicting frequencies. Reality itself was bending under the weight of this confrontation. The other Sentinels moved closer, tightening the circle, and Joseph could feel their energy pressing down on him, testing him, looking for weakness, looking for fear. But Joseph had been trained by the Essenes to master fear. He had learned to separate his emotional response from his mental clarity. Yes, his body was terrified. His hands were shaking. His heart was racing. But his mind was clear. His spirit was anchored. And he knew with absolute certainty that he was right. That mercy is never a violation of cosmic law. That love is never a crime. And that any system that says otherwise is a system that needs to be challenged. Listen to me very carefully right now. Are you feeling this? Are you feeling that resonance in your chest as you hear this story? That's not random. That's recognition. Because you are Joseph. I am Joseph. We are all Joseph in this moment of history. We are all being told that our compassion is illegal, that our questions are dangerous, that our refusal to accept the official narrative makes us criminals. And we are all standing in our own frozen deserts, surrounded by enforcers who want to erase us for daring to be human. Drop a comment right now if you understand what I'm saying. Because this story isn't ancient history, it's happening right now. The Sentinel who had stepped forward studied Joseph for a long moment. Behind him, the other 28 remained perfectly still, waiting for his assessment. Finally, he spoke again. You're either the bravest human I've ever encountered, or the most foolish. Perhaps both. But you're correct about the timeline. We cannot erase you without creating a paradox. However, that doesn't mean we're powerless. There are other protocols, other penalties. What if we simply ensure that no one remembers this event? What if we seal it away so completely that it might as well have never happened? Then do it, Joseph said. Erase this event from every text, every memory, every record. But you cannot erase it from the timeline itself. It happened. It's real. And the consequences are already unfolding. Raziel will return to the borderlands with hope renewed. I will continue my journey with knowledge activated. And the child I protect will grow up knowing that mercy is not weakness, that rules are not gods, and that love is the highest law. Seal that away if you can." The temperature began to rise. The ice started melting, fast, turning the desert floor into a muddy slush. The 29 Shadow Sentinels began to fade, not all at once, but gradually, like shadows dissolving when the sun comes out. But before they disappeared completely, the lead sentinel spoke one final time. "Very well, Tekton. This event will be sealed. No text will record it. No prophet will speak of it. It will become a mystery, a gap, a silence in the narrative. But mysteries have a way of being solved. And when the appointed time comes, when the seals are broken, this story will emerge. And those who hear it will understand. You have won this day, Joseph Bar Eli. Use your victory wisely." And then they were gone. The ice melted completely within minutes, the desert returning to its normal scorching temperature as if nothing had happened. But Joseph knew better. Everything had happened. The game had changed. The rules had been challenged. And a precedent had been set that would echo through the ages. Mary came to stand beside him, still holding Jesus. "What did we just witness?" she asked quietly. Joseph took her hand. "We witnessed," he said, "the moment when heaven and earth agreed that love is stronger than law. And that's going to change everything." They continued their journey to Egypt. They lived there for 2 years. And during that time, Joseph studied the crystal Raziel had given him every night. He learned things that would later be passed to Jesus in their private conversations, the teachings that never made it into the Gospels, the mysteries that were too dangerous to write down. And when they finally returned to Nazareth, Joseph did exactly what he had told Mary he would do. He built a house, and beneath its foundation, he buried the crystal deep in the earth, sealing it with prayers and symbols that would keep it safe until the right person at the right time would find it. That house still exists, by the way. Oh, it's been rebuilt many times over the centuries, but the foundation is original, and the crystal is still there, waiting. Archaeologists have explored the site, but never dug deep enough. They're looking for historical artifacts, not dimensional technology. They don't know what they're actually standing on top of. But here's what you need to understand. That crystal isn't the only one. Raziel wasn't the only fallen seraphim who was shown mercy, and Joseph wasn't the only Tekton. There's a whole network, a hidden lineage of humans who know the truth, who carry the codes, who are trained in the ancient ways. They've been working for 2,000 years to prepare humanity for the Great Awakening, for the moment when everyone realizes who they really are and what they're really capable of. And guess what? That moment is now. Right now. You're living in it. That's why everything feels so intense, so chaotic, so on the edge, because the seals are breaking, the mysteries are being revealed. The Shadow Sentinels are returning, trying to shut it all down, trying to enforce the old protocols. But they're too late. The frequency has shifted. The consciousness is rising. And people like you, people who found this video, people who felt that resonance in their chest, you're the ones who carry the Tekton codes, whether you know it or not. So what do you do with this information? First, you understand that you're not crazy. Those feelings of not belonging, of seeing through the illusions, of being unable to accept the official narrative, those aren't symptoms of a disorder. They're symptoms of awakening. Second, you practice what Joseph practiced. You choose mercy over judgment. You choose curiosity over fear. You choose compassion over conformity. Because those choices create cracks in the matrix, and cracks are how the light gets in. Third, you find your tribe. You find the other Tektons. They're everywhere, hiding in plain sight, doctors and teachers and artists and accountants, normal people with extraordinary awareness. You recognize them by their eyes. There's a depth there, an old soul quality, a knowing, and when you connect with them, you'll feel it, that same resonance you felt when you heard this story. The 13th apostle saved a fallen seraphim, and the next morning, 29 Shadow Sentinels froze the desert, trying to erase him from existence. But mercy proved stronger than enforcement. Love proved stronger than law. And that precedent, that crack in the cosmic code, is the reason you exist right now, with the potential to wake up fully activated. This isn't just a story, it's an activation code. If you made it this far, it's already working in you. You'll notice it in the next few days. Synchronicities will increase, dreams will intensify. You'll see through lies more clearly. You'll feel the truth more deeply. That's the crystal activating, the one Raziel gave Joseph, the one that was copied and distributed through the mystery schools, the one that's embedded in the morphic field, waiting for those who are ready. So leave a comment right now. Tell me, have you ever shown mercy to someone the world said didn't deserve it? Have you ever broken the rules because your heart told you to? Have you ever felt like reality bent around one of your choices? Because if you have, you're part of this lineage. You're one of the carriers, and your role in the awakening is essential. Subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, because we're going deeper. Next episode, we're talking about what happened when Mary Magdalene found the second crystal and used it to open a portal that the church has been trying to close for 2,000 years. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. The desert is freezing again, my friends. The Sentinels are returning. But this time, we're ready. This time we know who we are. This time we choose mercy, we choose love, we choose truth, and no protocol in heaven or hell can stop what's coming. Welcome to the awakening. Welcome home, Tekton. Sonnet 4.5.